Hey all, welcome back to my channel Hierarchy. In the previous video, we have seen about all the Python libraries that we are going to use specifically in AI, data science and machine learning. In this video, we are going to see a NumPy hands-on tutorial. We are going to see what is NumPy and why do we need NumPy. Additionally, we are going to see hands-on coding from scratch. Even if you are completely new to NumPy, you can easily learn this. So first let's try to understand how to import library and use them into our coding environment. For that first you can open any of your IPNB file, a new notebook. It might be a Google Colab notebook, it might be a VS Code coding environment, it might be your Jupyter notebook. So this is how my coding environment looks like. So for this, what I'm doing on the first step is I can import my library in Python using 4 different ways. The first method is importing using module name. The second method is importing my module name with the name of alias. Alias in the sense if I am importing the module and keeping a short name for that. So now I need that particular module. What I'll use is I'll just use that alias. Instead of using the whole name, I'll just use the small name. For NumPy, we use NP as an alias name. The third method of importing module is from my module. I'll import a specific function that I'm going to use for my particular need. The fourth method is from module name importing. I'm using star here, right? So this is used for importing all the functions. On the third step, I'm importing a particular function alone, right? As similar to that, in fourth step, I'm importing all the functions into my coding environment. So whenever I need to use any of the function, I can use it without any limitations. But it has a quite smaller disadvantage that whenever I try to import all the functions into my coding environment for a particular module, what happens is if it is a large project, when I need to handle large data sets, the project itself will consume large amount of time, right? So importing all the functions into my coding environment, it definitely will consume so much of time. So it is not advisable to use this fourth method of importing all the functions for my module name, specifically for large projects. So let's see in NumPy how all these 4 module methods of importing is being used. In first method, what I could do is I could just import the module name here is NumPy. So NumPy is imported likewise. Followed by that, the second method, how I'm importing, import module name as alias. So importing NumPy as NP. And the third method is importing module name, and from module name I will be importing the particular function. So likewise, from NumPy I am importing array alone. On the fourth method, how I should import it? From module name import star. How it works? I'll import all the functions into my coding environment. First of all, what specifically is NumPy? If they ask any explanation, what you could tell them is it is specifically used for numerical computations. The abbreviation of NumPy itself is numerical Python. Whenever I have a need of handling numerical values into my data set, that is when I'll be going to NumPy. If you need a practical explanation which is highly professional, you can use this. NumPy is a Python library used to work with numbers, which is very fast. It is mainly used when we have a lot of numerical data. Think you could consider this particular NumPy is like a calculator, but which is highly fast, specifically on large amount of data. If I give so much of data into my computer, and if I am using NumPy here, it is capable of doing it in an easy way. So that is how NumPy is being used. So generally, this is the second method of using module importing. Is the common method of importing modules into my coding environment. So what I'm doing here is importing module name as alias. So importing import NumPy as NP. Next to that, let's try to understand why do we need NumPy. Generally, when we use list data type in particular problem solving or in particular problem where I need to handle data, what happens is it becomes slower. So as an alternative, we do have NumPy array, which is capable of handling large amount of data, large volume of data. When I replace NumPy array with list, what happens is it automatically becomes fast. The calculations will happen in seconds. So that is why I need NumPy. Let's try to create a NumPy array from scratch. So for that, what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable name called numbers, inside which I'm creating a list. Okay. So for that, next to that, I'm trying to print the numbers. This is actually a list. It is not an array at all. So this is how a list will look like. Why I'm creating here is to show you what is the difference between list and a NumPy array. Now let's try to create a NumPy array. So for creating a NumPy array, as similar to how you created a variable name, I'm creating a variable name as ARR as a sharp path. So this is completely customizable. Next to that, np.array. It is a syntax which I need to use. Followed by that, I'll be having open and closing brackets, inside which I'll be giving a list. So how you will be giving a list generally? Open square bracket, closing square bracket, inside which you'll be giving list of all numbers or list of all elements. So that is how I'm giving here too. Followed by that, I'm trying to print the same array that I've created. This is how you will be creating an array in Python. I mean specifically a NumPy array in Python. This is how you have to create it. So now this is an array, it is not a list because you created it using np.array. This is how you generally create it. Now what we have seen the difference between list and NumPy array, and we learned how to create NumPy array from scratch. Followed by that, we are going to see a basic math operations that we could apply using NumPy in simple methods. The first easiest way is, first I'm creating a NumPy array. Followed by that, see how easy it is to do any mathematical calculation using NumPy array. So I can add with all these numbers, I can add any of numbers. I can multiply any of the numbers. I can find the power of any of these numbers. It is easy when I use NumPy array. Let's see how it makes sense. The first method, my first step is, after creating an array, I am calling that array inside a print function. Next is I am giving +5. What will happen here is, to each and every element in my NumPy array, the number 5 will get added. So what would be the result? Obviously, so 10 plus 5 it's 15, 20 plus 5 it's 25, 30 plus 5 it's 35. Followed by that, I am trying to multiply 2 with all these elements. So what is 10 into 2? It is 40. I mean 20. 20 into 2, it is 40. 30 into 2, it is 60. So that is what we got as an output here. First, we are trying to add a particular number. Next, we are trying to multiply a particular number. So it is very easy when we just use NumPy arrays in Python. Even the coding part gets much easier. That is special about NumPy array. Next, indexing. We have already seen data types and methods, right? Built-in data types and methods. We have seen about list, we have seen about set, we have seen about string and all, right? So in that, we have seen something called accessing a particular element using index value. That is something we could do with NumPy too. So for doing that, it's simple. What you have to do is, first I'm creating a NumPy array using the usual syntax. Followed by that, inside print, I'll be calling the variable name inside which I created an array. Followed by that, inside square bracket, I need to give the index. Tell me how index value gets started in Python. It usually gets started with 0th index, first index and second index. So it starts with 0. So if I give the value of 0 as a syntax, so what would be my first element? What would be the element which would be there? So this element of 100 will get printed. If I give 1 here, so the element on my first index will get printed. So this is how indexing in Python works. So each and every time while giving index values and trying to take elements from that particular array, what you might miss is you might miss the square bracket. Instead of using square bracket, you might use normal brackets, which will definitely throw an error. Let's try to use that. See how error is being. See, this is how you will get error. You might get confused as a beginner. So what you have to carefully notice is all these brackets that we are going to use in every different data type. Specifically, while learning all these libraries in Python, you will be using different brackets at different places. You have to clearly observe. So after you completed watching this video, after if you do hands-on coding along with me, after completing it, you should try with different values. That is very important. Only then you will remember all the things that you are learning at class. So you should not leave it as it is after you just do coding as along with me. That is not enough. Next, we have slicing. It is as similar to indexing, but what you will do here is you will mention the range. You will not just mention the index value alone. Instead, you give the index value as a range from first index till fourth index. So how slicing works is at the last index alone, it works in a way the last index n minus 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3 absolutely. So it starts, the value starts with first index until 4 minus 1. What is 4 minus 1? It is 3, right? So the value on the third index. How index will get started? 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So for that, based on the given condition, I need to print the values from 1 to 3 because I need to reduce 4 with, reduce 1 from 4, so it becomes 3. So from first index till third index, I have to print the list of all values. So 2, 3 and 4. This is how slicing in Python works. And you can easily remember if you compare and learn both slicing and indexing. You will not get confusions while working with them. Next to that, we have shape and size. It's just very easy. So when I create an array, I can create like this. You might think it is just two lists. No, it is not as what you think. It not works in that way. Instead, it is a multi-dimensional array. This is like a first row, 1, 2 and 3. 4, 5, 6 is like it is a second row. In a matrix, you might have seen that topic of matrix at your high school or in your 10th standard, 6th standard itself, right? You might have got introduced to that. So in that topic, we have seen about rows and columns and all. So this 1, 2, 3 is the first row and 4, 5, 6 on the second row. So here I am creating an array of multi-dimensions. So one thing you have to additionally notice is here I am not just giving one square bracket and closing square bracket for every individual list alone. Instead, I'm giving a square bracket here and here too. Why? Because it is a multi-dimensional array. I'm giving two lists inside, right? So, if my Python want to understand that it is a multi-dimensional array, it is not a normal list or an array. It is actually like a matrix. I need to give an additional opening and closing square bracket. So, that is very important. Followed by that, what I'm doing is near to my variable name, I'm giving dot shape. This dot shape will print my number of rows and columns. I told that 1, 2, 3 is on my first row and 4, 5, 6 on my second row. So obviously 1, 2 and 3 are columns and 4, 5, 6 are columns. So based on that, here I'm trying to print a dot size, right? So array, when I give array dot size, it will print the number of elements. So total number of elements we have in this list particularly is totally 6 elements. So my first row I have 3 elements. On my second row I have 3 elements. So totally 6 elements. Array dot shape is used for printing my number of rows and columns, and array dot size is used for printing the total number of elements I do have in my array. So obviously it is 6 and The number of rows we have is 2 and the number of columns we have is 3. That is what we got printed here. Next to that, let's see simple statistics. So this is generally used for applying basic statistical functions into my Numpy array. So what we generally have is dot sum, dot mean and dot max. Other than this, we do have so many statistical functions in Python, not just this. So this is actually a basic statistical operations that we use in NumPy. Before data scientists came into role of analyzing data analysts analyzing data, the role that we had is statisticians. That is something that you have to know. So what they generally do is they manually do so many calculations with using statistical formulas. But this NumPy made it so easy. You know what? Even if I have huge amount of data with just one line of coding, I can find the mean value. I can find the maximum value. I can find all the sum value. It was made that easy. What I can do is I can define them inside an array. Followed by that, I'll just use np.sum of the variable name inside which I created an array. So if I want to find the mean value, the same applies. np.mean. If I want to find the maximum value, I'll use np.max. So it will print the sum values, it will print the average value and it will print maximum value that is there in my given array. This is how the statistical functions could be easily applied using NumPy array. So in real life, if I want to find an average mark of a student, what I can do is I can simply use that np.mean function from my NumPy arrays. So that simple is NumPy. It is much easy to learn, easy to understand, easy to implement, but it has so many advantages. As a beginner, there is a possibility to you that you could make so many mistakes. And the common mistake that you could make is you might create a list and you might expect that your NumPy should treat it as an array. So you might miss this open and closing bracket. So you should avoid that kind of mistakes. And specifically, you after defining that import NumPy as np and all, you might miss using this np dot here. That should be avoided. Sometimes we do saw that 4 methods of importing modules, right? You might use an alternate, you might use any of the method and here you might have called that as NumPy itself or you might call it in a way NP, but you might have just imported import NumPy. You didn't even call alias while importing. So that kind of mistakes you could possibly make and as a beginner if you make that mistakes, if you see an error you will get stuck. So you should do carefully each and every time. And the final thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to NumPy is it is used for numerical operation. Whenever I see numbers into my data, NumPy should be the first choice for handling those numbers and doing some calculations. When it comes to array data type specifically in Python, NumPy is the best option and NumPy array is generally faster than list specifically handling huge amount of data. The one reason why we use NumPy here is it is capable of handling large amount of data. I'll use AI, data science and machine learning for handling large volume of data, right? That is why NumPy should be your first choice while handling huge amount of data. I hope this session gave you a clarity on NumPy and if you have any doubts without hesitation, drop them on comments and every comments will get answers. Bye for now. We'll meet you in next video.